Okay, class. So, introduction to cinema genre. The genres go far, 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 far back. As early as the earliest is the 800 AD, around the early Greeks, the Aristotelian and Plato philosophers. They were contemplating the poetics, the arts, literature, and how everything sort of goes into different categories, and they call these categories the genres. So this goes way back, and all the way up until current times we use some sort of system to categorize the types of stories we tell. Today in the current film industry, remember the film is an industry. They're in it for money. From our perspective of the viewer, it's more of a ritual, but from the industry side, it's a business. So they have to use categories on all the levels of making a project. Okay. First of all, the idea of genres are intertextual, meaning the text, the content that's created now has this link to the text and the content that was created before us in history. Okay? It's not created sort of in this vacuum. And then it's also tied to culture and where we are as a society. And that changes. So it's intertwined with that sort of changing conversation that humanity has. And the genres sort of reflect that, because the genres themselves change in a bit. And you'll see what I'm talking about later in the chapter. But intertextual, that's what the idea of a genre is. So in there are 5 phases of a film. You have development, pre-production, production, post-production, distribution. Development is when the writer is actually writing the story. It could be something the studio purchased and got a writer to write, or maybe an idea that the writer has on their own. But before they even start writing it, they have to put it in the context of a specific genre so that they can communicate this project without it even existing yet. Like, I can come and tell you, hey, I got this idea for a Western about this sheriff, from, I don't know, blah, 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 right? It gives you the context to sort of conceptualize this story that doesn't exist yet. Even from the ideation period of the story, genre comes into play, okay? And once you start writing as a writer, right, you have to understand, you have to know your genre, because the audience, right, has expectations of each genre, okay? There are specific things they expect from each genre. If it's a if it's a gangster movie, there's got to be a gangster, a criminal, right? Not everybody can be Boy Scouts. Someone's got to be the bad guy, right? If it's film noir, there's got to be a private eye, okay? The dark shadows. They're things that the audience expect. And a lot of critics will use the audience, how well the audience's expectation was met by the content the director created, right? In other words, did the director's vision for telling this story meet the expectations that the audience has for this genre? Did they successfully meet And that space where they meet is where the film critiques sort of look at the film, right? From that lens of what do we expect from the genres. Okay, so it's very important. In pre-production, right? Like say something like film noir, where you need these harsh lightings. There's a cost to that. There's a certain approach that the cameraman is going to take, and he's going to need certain specific lenses and specific lighting packages, okay, that will affect the budget. So we have to know that genre. If it's a Western, right, the wardrobe department is going to have to know that, as well as the budgeting, because you have to rent authentic Western costumes and props. All that stuff costs money, so that's going to affect the budget in pre-production, So, in production as well, as far as recreating those scenes and the aesthetic looks. Even in maybe a certain dialect of a period that's called forth, And then in post-production, there's maybe a certain look that's required that has to be applied with visual effects, So yeah, genre is very important. Even in the distribution, right? Before the movie's released, they're thinking marketing. You're going to market a Western different than the way you market a science fiction film. It's just the way it is. Two different audiences. So the posters are going to look different. The font's going to look different. The posters are going to appeal to a certain aesthetic of that genre. Okay? So this concept of the genre applies and impacts the film on all 5 phases of production of the life of the film. Okay? So understand that. And the average audience does not get that. Okay? When you go and buy your ticket, or you see that the trailer for the next James Bond film, and you're excited because you're going to see James Bond, he's going to have all types of weapons and do some amazing stunts, and he's going to look cool doing it, right? You have a certain expectation. You're not thinking about how that genre is affecting the budget, how much the visual effects is going to cost when Mr. Bond, takes out a blimp or a submarine in the middle of Antarctica. How much is it going to cost to hire a visual effects team for the next 12 months to recreate this sequence? No, you're not thinking about that. So, genre penetrates every aspect of the film. All right, after you have read the chapter, take the quiz. See you on the next video.